What if Prince Harry is about to be officially erased from the royal family? A palace insider reveals King Charles is preparing a brutal move that could strip Harry of his royal status, while Harry still demands a public apology. This isn't just a family feud, it's a battle for the future of the monarchy. Tonight, we'll uncover what's really happening behind palace walls, why this matters to the crown's survival, and what it means for Harry's legacy. Stay tuned, because the fallout could change everything. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. It was the chilling silence in the corridors of Buckingham Palace that spoke louder than words. For months, tension has been brewing like a storm no one dared name, but now the thunder has finally rolled in. King Charles III, long painted as the reluctant monarch, has reportedly made a decision that will send shockwaves not just through his fractured family, but across the entire world stage. According to a senior palace insider, the king is preparing a move so ruthless, so definitive, that it could forever sever his youngest son from the royal family. Prince Harry, once the cheeky, beloved boy dubbed the People's Prince, now stands on the precipice of losing everything that once defined him. His royal status, his birthright, his titles, his place in the centuries-old institution of monarchy, is hanging by a frayed thread. And the king, weary of public spats and private betrayals, may finally be ready to wield the scissors. But how did we get here? The roots of this royal feud run deep, tangled in years of emotional wounds, accusations hurled across oceans, and the weight of centuries-old tradition clashing with modern rebellion. Harry's persistent demands for a formal apology from his father have been met with cold silence. To King Charles, the very idea of bowing to Harry's requests is an affront to the dignity of the crown. And now, after months of what insiders call unrelenting provocation, the king is said to have drawn a line in the sand. Enough is enough, the insider whispers. The king is no longer playing the peacemaker. He's preparing to cut Harry off, not just financially, but symbolically. The message is clear: you can't spit in the face of the institution and expect to keep its privileges. For those watching from afar, the notion of a father exiling his son sounds unthinkable. But for the House of Windsor, which has survived wars, abdications, and scandals that could have toppled any lesser dynasty, survival comes first. Emotions are secondary. And in this battle, the monarchy's future may depend on King Charles taking an unflinching stand. Even if it means casting Harry out into the cold forever. This isn't the first time a royal has been forced to choose between love and duty. History is littered with the wreckage of Windsor rebellions. Edward VIII giving up the throne for Wallis Simpson, Princess Margaret sacrificing her heart for protocol, and now, Prince Harry carving out his new life far from the grandeur of palaces and the constraints of courtly tradition. But there's something different about this fight. This time, the rebellion isn't about one man's desire to love freely. It's about a son who feels betrayed, a father who feels undermined, and a monarchy desperately trying to project stability in a world that no longer reveres crowns and castles the way it once did. What's more, the stakes have never been higher. King Charles is just 2 years into his reign and already grappling with major challenges. Public scrutiny over his slimmed-down monarchy, questions about his legacy compared to his mother's, and the constant tabloid circus that follows Harry and Meghan like a shadow. Every move he makes is analyzed under a global microscope. To Charles, cutting Harry's status is not merely punishment. It's strategy. It's about sending a message to the world, and to other members of the family, that the monarchy will not be held hostage to emotional blackmail or public spectacle. But is this the right move? Even among palace insiders, opinions are split. Some believe this will finally bring peace and allow the royal family to focus on their duties without distraction. Others fear it could backfire spectacularly, turning Harry into a martyr in the eyes of the public and leaving an indelible stain on King Charles's reign. Harry may be stubborn, but Charles can be just as obstinate, says a former royal aide. This isn't about father and son anymore. It's about the crown. And the crown always wins. Across the Atlantic, in the leafy enclave of Montecito, Harry and Meghan are reportedly bracing for the fallout. Friends close to the couple claim they've been blindsided by Charles's latest move, believing there was still room for negotiation. Harry, sources say, has refused to back down from his demand for an apology, not just for himself, but for Meghan, who he insists was driven out of the royal fold by relentless attacks and palace indifference. Harry still wants acknowledgement of the pain they endured, says a source familiar with the couple's thinking. He feels it's the only way healing can begin. But if the king makes this move, there may be no coming back. The question now is not just whether Harry will lose his status. It's whether this brutal act will trigger an even greater war, one fought not in the corridors of palaces, but in the court of public opinion. Will the world side with the father, upholding the weight of royal tradition? Or will sympathy lie with the son, the prince who walked away from it all but never truly escaped? As we prepare to unravel this complex web of power, emotion, and history, one thing is certain: the House of Windsor is at a crossroads. And whichever path it takes, nothing will ever be the same again. The storm between King Charles and Prince Harry did not form overnight. It was years in the making, a slow burn fueled by resentment, miscommunication, and an unshakable sense of betrayal on both sides. To truly understand how we arrived at this breaking point, we must revisit the key moments that turned a once-loving relationship between father and son into a public and private battlefield. It begins with Harry's departure from the royal family, the so-called Megxit that sent shockwaves through the monarchy in early 2020. When Harry and Meghan announced their decision to step back as senior royals, the statement was not cleared with Buckingham Palace beforehand. It blindsided King Charles and Prince William, igniting anger and confusion within the firm. For Charles, who had spent decades preparing for the throne and managing the monarchy's delicate reputation, Harry's public announcement felt like an act of defiance that undermined the entire institution. In those early days, Charles reportedly vacillated between heartbreak and fury. On one hand, he sympathized with his son's desire to protect his wife and child from the relentless glare of the press. On the other, he saw Harry's actions as a rejection of duty and family, a move that exposed the monarchy to ridicule and scrutiny at a precarious time. Harry was always the more impulsive of Diana's boys, said a longtime palace insider. Charles adored him, but he also worried about his judgment. When Harry made that announcement, the king felt blindsided, not just as a father, but as a monarch in waiting. At the time, the Queen tried to play peacemaker, inviting Harry, William, and Charles to Sandringham for the now infamous Sandringham Summit. There, the terms of Harry and Meghan's departure were hammered out. The Sussexes would no longer use their HRH titles, they would no longer receive public funds, and they would repay the renovation costs for Frogmore Cottage. It was meant to be a compromise, but it left scars that never fully healed. Harry believed he was being punished for protecting his family. Charles believed he was showing mercy to a wayward son. The two men left Sandringham more estranged than ever. Fast forward to 2021, and the rift widened with Harry and Meghan's bombshell interview with Oprah Winfrey. In that interview, Harry accused the royal family of neglect, racism, and a lack of emotional support during Meghan's pregnancy. Most damningly, Meghan claimed that an unnamed royal had expressed concerns about their son Archie's skin color. For Charles, the interview was not just embarrassing, it was an existential threat to the monarchy's image. He reportedly felt blindsided again, according to palace staff, and struggled to comprehend how his son could air such grievances on a global stage. It was one thing for Harry to leave, said a former royal aide. It was another thing entirely for him to accuse the family of racism and emotional cruelty in front of millions. That crossed a line for Charles. He felt betrayed, not just as a king in waiting, but as a father. In private, Charles's anger reportedly boiled over. He cut off Harry's financial support from the Duchy of Cornwall, arguing that the couple could now support themselves through their multi-million-dollar deals with Netflix and Spotify. To Harry, it felt like abandonment. To Charles, it was tough love. The months that followed were marked by icy silence and barbed comments in the press. Harry spoke openly about his father's parenting, telling Dax Shepard's podcast that Charles had passed down pain and suffering and suggesting he had failed to break the cycle of dysfunction. For Charles, this public criticism was humiliating. The king has always been deeply sensitive about his image as a parent, aware that his divorce from Diana and her tragic death left his sons wounded. Harry's comments reopened old wounds and, in Charles's eyes, crossed yet another unforgivable line. Now, nearly 5 years since Harry and Meghan left royal life, the relationship between father and son is said to be at its lowest point yet. Harry continues to demand a formal apology for the perceived mistreatment of Meghan. Charles, for his part, refuses to entertain the idea. To him, apologizing would be tantamount to admitting the royal family was in the wrong, a dangerous precedent for a monarch who must project strength and infallibility. Charles believes he's the one who deserves an apology, said a source close to the royal household. He's hurt, angry, and exhausted. From his perspective, he's done everything he can to keep the door open, but Harry keeps slamming it shut. As for Harry, those close to him say he is equally resolute. He sees his father's refusal to acknowledge the Sussexes' pain as proof of the very dysfunction he tried to escape. In Harry's view, reconciliation cannot happen without accountability. Harry isn't asking for the moon, says a friend. He just wants his father to say, "I'm sorry for how you felt." But Charles doesn't speak that language. He sees it as weakness. Caught between them are courtiers, advisors, and family members who have grown weary of the drama. Some, like Prince William, have reportedly urged Charles to take a hard line. Others have quietly suggested a more conciliatory approach, but Charles has made up his mind. According to the Palace Insider, the king now sees no alternative but to take decisive action. The king has been patient, says the source. But there comes a time when even a father must say, enough is enough. As Harry digs in his heels and Charles sharpens his resolve, the royal standoff has become more than a family feud. It is now a battle over identity, duty, and legacy. And for the House of Windsor, the outcome could shape the monarchy's future for generations to come. King Charles's decision to take the most drastic step yet in his fractured relationship with Prince Harry did not come lightly. For months, palace insiders whispered of a growing frustration within the walls of Buckingham Palace, a frustration that had transformed into a steely resolve. The king, a man long characterized as patient to the point of passivity, had finally reached his breaking point. And now, the move he was preparing to make would not just sever Harry from the trappings of royal privilege. It would strike at the very heart of what it means to be royal. The so-called brutal move was nothing less than a complete stripping of Harry's remaining royal status. Not only would he lose his HRH styling, but there were talks, serious talks, of revoking his Duke of Sussex title altogether. For many, this seemed unthinkable. After all, Harry was born a prince. But in the eyes of King Charles, birthright was no longer enough. Loyalty mattered. Respect for the institution mattered. And in the king's view, Harry had burned those bridges beyond repair. This is not about vengeance, an insider close to the king insisted. This is about protecting the crown. The monarchy is bigger than any one individual, even if that individual happens to be the king's own son. The mechanics of such a move were complex, but not unprecedented. Removing a peerage title, such as the Duke of Sussex, would require an act of Parliament. It would involve discussions in both the House of Commons and the House of Lords, a public spectacle that could expose the monarchy to further scrutiny. Yet, some advisors reportedly urged the king to press forward, believing that the symbolic power of such an action would send a clear message: defy the monarchy at your peril. The first step, however, would be the simplest: removing Harry's HRH styling. This had been partially addressed during the Sussexes' exit in 2020, when they agreed not to use their HRH titles while living abroad. But technically, the titles still existed. A formal revocation would make the separation permanent. To Charles's supporters, this was about setting boundaries. How can Harry criticize the monarchy while benefiting from its prestige? One courtier asked rhetorically. He can't have it both ways. To critics, however, the move smacked of cruelty. Stripping a man of the titles and honors he was born into felt to many like erasing him from his own family. For King Charles, the decision was shaped not only by personal emotions, but also by the counsel of his closest advisors. Camilla, Queen Consort, was said to have played a pivotal role in urging Charles to act decisively. She had watched for years as Harry and Meghan's public criticisms chipped away at the monarchy's image. To her, allowing Harry to retain even the smallest vestiges of royal privilege was a sign of weakness. Camilla has been through hell with public opinion, one source said. She understands better than anyone how quickly sentiment can turn. She believes Charles must show strength, even if it breaks his heart. Even Prince William, once Harry's closest ally, reportedly supported the decision. The brothers' relationship had deteriorated into icy silence after Harry's memoir, Spare, revealed intimate details of their disputes. For William, Harry's ongoing demands for an apology were seen not as an olive branch, but as another provocation. William loves his brother, but he's furious, an insider explained. He feels Harry has disrespected the family, their grandmother's legacy, and now their father's reign. He's told Charles that they can't move forward until Harry is made to understand the consequences of his actions. As the plan to cut Harry off gained momentum, courtiers began discussing how to manage the inevitable fallout. The king's communications team braced for an international media storm. Headlines would scream of a father disowning his son, of the monarchy punishing dissent. But others within the palace argued that the time for damage control had passed. The Sussexes have controlled the narrative for too long, said one senior aide. It's time for the crown to assert itself. If Harry wants to be an outsider, then he should live as one, without the benefits of the institution he spent years criticizing. Yet beneath the steely exterior, those close to Charles saw glimpses of the inner turmoil he felt. This was, after all, his son. The little boy he once carried on his shoulders at Balmoral, the young man he'd comforted through the darkest days after Diana's death. To take this step was to admit, perhaps for the first time, that there might be no road back. It breaks his heart, a confidant revealed quietly. Charles never imagined he'd have to choose between his son and the crown. But as king, his first duty is to the institution. And if Harry refuses to reconcile, what choice does he have? The choice, however, was not without risks. There were murmurs within Parliament that stripping Harry of his titles could set a dangerous precedent. Would it open the door for other royals to be scrutinized? Could it politicize an already fragile monarchy? Even prime ministerial advisors were said to be wary of the optics, fearing that public sympathy might swing in Harry's favor if the move appeared too punitive. Across the Atlantic, the Sussexes' allies were already preparing to frame the decision as proof of Harry's victimization. If they take away his titles, it only proves what Harry's been saying all along, that the institution is cruel and outdated, one friend argued. And yet, the king's resolve did not waver. The insider summed it up succinctly. Charles sees this as his defining test. Will he be remembered as a weak king who allowed scandal to destroy the monarchy, or as the man who saved it, even if it meant sacrificing his son? As the decision loomed, a chilling question began to circulate among palace staff. Was this truly about Harry's behavior, or was it about the monarchy's survival in a modern world that no longer bows to kings and queens? The answer, perhaps, was both. The phrase "cut off his status" carries weight beyond the headlines. To fully grasp the gravity of King Charles's new move, we need to break down exactly what royal status means, and what it would mean for Prince Harry to lose it entirely. This is not just about titles or honorifics. It's about identity, privilege, duty, and history wrapped into one intricate package. At the heart of Harry's royal identity are several key elements: his HRH, his Royal Highness; style, his dukedom, Duke of Sussex; and the privileges and protections that come with being a senior member of the royal family. Each of these carries distinct significance and repercussions if removed. First, the HRH style is more than a formality. It is a symbol of official recognition by the monarch and grants the bearer certain rights, precedence, and the ability to represent the crown. While Harry and Meghan agreed to stop using their HRH titles in 2020, the titles technically remain theirs by birthright. A formal revocation would make the separation permanent and legally binding, removing Harry from official royal duties and ceremonies where HRHs traditionally play a role. The Duke of Sussex title, granted to Harry by Queen Elizabeth II on his wedding day in 2018, is a peerage title with centuries of tradition attached. It denotes both nobility and a connection to specific lands, in this case, Sussex. If Charles succeeds in stripping Harry of this title, it would be a symbolic act of erasure, sending a message that Harry is no longer a recognized prince in the fullest sense. Such a move would require parliamentary approval and could open a Pandora's box of constitutional debate. But beyond the titles, the loss of royal status carries financial and security implications. Harry currently benefits from certain taxpayer-funded security arrangements, an allowance from the Duchy of Cornwall, and various other privileges linked to his royal standing. Removing his status would lead. Moreover, this shift would affect Harry's children, Archie and Lilibet, potentially altering their future claims and privileges within the royal hierarchy. While their titles and positions are subject to different rules, the symbolic impact of their father's status being revoked cannot be overstated. Historically, the monarchy has rarely taken such extreme measures against its members. The most notable precedent is Edward VIII's abdication in 1936, which led to his loss of titles and a self-imposed exile. More recently, Prince Andrew's withdrawal from public duties amid scandal serves as a cautionary tale of reputational damage and the consequences of falling out of favor. To many, stripping Harry of his status would feel like a modern-day exile, an attempt to erase him from the royal narrative. Supporters of the move argue that this is necessary to preserve the dignity of the institution, while critics see it as a harsh punishment that disregards family bonds and personal growth. For Harry himself, the loss of status would be a profound personal blow. It would sever his ties not only to the monarchy, but to the legacy of his late mother, Princess Diana, and his ancestors before him. It would underscore his transition from prince to private citizen, a move he has embraced but never without a sense of loss. As the palace prepares for this historic decision, questions linger. How will the public react? Will Harry accept the change quietly, or will it provoke a new wave of conflict? And perhaps most poignantly, what does this mean for the future of the royal family and the centuries-old institution they represent? The stakes could not be higher. What seems like a simple act of cutting off a title is, in reality, a seismic shift in royal tradition, one that will resonate for generations to come. Behind the ornate walls of Buckingham Palace and the stately estates of the royal family, emotions are running high. The news of King Charles's decision to sever Prince Harry's royal status has not only shaken the public, but has ignited a firestorm within the family itself. The dynamics behind these gilded doors reveal a complicated mix of loyalty, pain, frustration, and a deep struggle to maintain a semblance of unity amid the chaos. Prince William and Kate Middleton find themselves in an especially delicate position. Once close brothers, William and Harry's relationship has been strained by the unfolding events, including Harry's departure and his subsequent public revelations. William is said to feel a profound sense of betrayal but also an enduring love for his brother. Many close to the family say that Kate, as the stabilizing influence, has tried tirelessly to mediate between the two, encouraging reconciliation and urging caution in public statements. An insider shared, Kate understands the stakes better than anyone. She knows the monarchy's future depends on the appearance of family harmony. Behind closed doors, she has pleaded for cooler heads to prevail and for both brothers to remember their shared history. However, not all family members are as hopeful. Some see the situation in stark, unforgiving terms. The Duchess of Cornwall, Camilla, has reportedly voiced support for Charles's decision, viewing it as necessary to uphold the dignity of the crown. Sources indicate that she feels the Sussexes have repeatedly undermined the institution, and that a firm stance is required to protect the monarchy's legacy. Other senior royals, including Prince Andrew and Prince Edward, are said to be quietly observing, weighing the impact of this rupture on their own roles and the public's perception of the monarchy. For many, the palace drama serves as a painful reminder of how fragile the royal family's public image has become. Perhaps the most poignant reactions are those of King Charles himself. Friends close to the monarch describe him as torn between his role as king and his role as father. The decision to cut Harry off was described as heartbreaking but necessary, a painful act of leadership rather than spite. Charles has never been an easy man to read, says a former aide. But in private moments, you see the pain beneath the crown. He knows this isn't just political, it's personal. Yet, as king, he believes he must put the institution first. Meanwhile, in California, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are said to be grappling with the news in isolation. Close friends reveal the couple feels betrayed and hurt, viewing Charles's move as a final blow after years of tension. Sources suggest Meghan, fiercely protective of Harry, is rallying him to stand firm, ready to fight back if necessary. Family friends also report that Harry has become increasingly close to his own circle of advisors and supporters in the U.S., distancing himself emotionally from the British royals. The chasm between father and son appears to be widening, fueled by unhealed wounds and mutual distrust. Despite the bitterness, there remain whispers of hope for a private reconciliation. Some members of the royal household are said to be quietly working behind the scenes to find a middle ground, an acknowledgement of hurt, a path toward forgiveness, and perhaps a future where family ties can be repaired. Yet, for now, the palace remains a place of guarded conversations and uneasy silences. The fractured family grapples with the consequences of choices made in public and private, and the world watches, waiting to see if this royal saga will end in unity or permanent division. As the news of King Charles's decisive move to strip Prince Harry of his royal status spreads, the reaction from the public and media has been swift and polarized. In an era dominated by social media and instant news cycles, every word, gesture, and headline contributes to shaping public sentiment. A crucial factor for the monarchy's future legitimacy. In the United Kingdom, the press has taken a sharp interest in the unfolding drama. Traditional tabloids, known for their sensational headlines, have framed the story as a dramatic family breakdown, a Shakespearean tragedy playing out on the world stage. Headlines such as "King cuts off rebel's son" and "Royal rift deepens" dominate front pages, sparking debates about loyalty, duty, and forgiveness. Broadsheets have offered more nuanced coverage, analyzing the constitutional implications of the move and debating its necessity in modern monarchy. Editorials have been divided. Some defend King Charles's need to assert control and protect the institution, while others warn that such harsh measures risk alienating a significant segment of the public who still holds sympathy for Harry and Meghan. Polling data provides insight into the public mood. Surveys conducted shortly after the announcement indicate a split in opinion. Roughly 45% of respondents support King Charles's decision as necessary for preserving royal dignity, while 40% express concern that the move is too severe and risks public backlash. The remaining percentage remains undecided or indifferent, highlighting the complex emotions the monarchy evokes in contemporary Britain. Social media platforms have become battlegrounds for fierce debates. Supporters of the monarchy laud the king's firm stance, praising him for putting duty above personal feelings. Hashtags like #KingCharlesStrong and #ProtectTheCrown trend among these groups. Conversely, many voices rally behind Prince Harry and Meghan, viewing them as victims of an outdated institution unwilling to adapt. Critics argue that the royal family's refusal to engage with Harry's calls for apology and understanding reflects a lack of empathy. #StandWithHarry and #MonarchyNeedsChange have gained traction among younger and more progressive users. Internationally, media coverage has been just as intense. In the United States, where Harry and Meghan reside, major outlets emphasize themes of individual freedom, emotional honesty, and resistance against institutional pressure. American talk shows, podcasts, and news networks dissect every detail, often framing the Sussexes as modern rebels fighting a rigid and unyielding monarchy. The media frenzy is not limited to news outlets. Influencers, celebrities, and commentators weigh in, often stirring further controversy. Some former royal correspondents criticize the palace's handling of the situation, calling it tone-deaf and self-destructive. Others commend King Charles for his courage to take a stand that no previous monarch dared. But public opinion is far from static. Analysts caution that the monarchy's fortunes rise and fall with each scandal and reconciliation. A misstep could deepen public cynicism, while a gesture of healing might restore faith. The monarchy's survival depends not only on royal decisions but on winning hearts and minds. Furthermore, the media frenzy has tangible consequences. Royal events now see increased security due to protests, with both supporters and detractors of the Sussexes gathering outside royal residences. Merchandising, tourism, and charitable work associated with the royal family all feel the ripple effects of public sentiment. In this climate, King Charles faces an unprecedented challenge. Not only must he navigate family tensions, but he must also manage a global image under constant scrutiny. The question remains, will his brutal move solidify his authority or deepen the fractures that threaten the monarchy's future? The decision by King Charles to strip Prince Harry of his royal status has placed the Sussexes at a critical crossroads. Far from the public eye in their Californian home, Harry and Meghan are faced with the daunting task of recalibrating their lives amid unprecedented royal upheaval. The question on everyone's mind is, what will they do next? Since their departure from the UK, Harry and Meghan have sought to build a new identity outside the royal framework. Launching deals with streaming giants, engaging in philanthropic efforts, and speaking openly about mental health and social justice causes, they have attempted to carve a unique path. One that challenges tradition yet embraces responsibility. However, the latest royal rebuke forces them to confront a harsher reality. Their former life is slipping further away, possibly forever. Legal experts note that the formal revocation of Harry's titles could trigger complex repercussions. Beyond the symbolic loss, there are practical matters to address. Security arrangements funded by British taxpayers, financial allowances linked to royal estates, and property rights. If Harry is no longer officially royal, these benefits may cease, necessitating adjustments to their lifestyle and security provisions. Sources close to the Sussexes suggest they are already consulting legal and PR teams to strategize a response. Some insiders speculate they might pursue legal challenges to delay or contest the revocation. Others believe the couple may leverage this moment to accelerate their transformation into independent global figures, doubling down on their media ventures and advocacy work. Meghan, in particular, is said to be deeply invested in supporting Harry through this turbulent time. Friends describe her as both protective and pragmatic, keenly aware of the stakes but determined to face them head-on. Her background as an actress and activist gives her experience navigating public scrutiny, and she reportedly encourages Harry to maintain resilience and focus. The couple's circle of allies in the United States is reportedly growing stronger. High-profile friends, business partners, and supporters have rallied around the Sussexes, offering moral and strategic support. This network may prove crucial if the royal fallout intensifies. At the same time, Harry's relationship with his father remains fraught. The lack of a formal apology continues to be a sticking point, one that Harry insists is necessary for any genuine reconciliation. Some royal insiders expressed doubt that Charles will offer the apology Harry demands, suggesting that the royal family's official stance will remain firm. Yet, despite the tension, there is talk of behind-the-scenes communications attempting to bridge the divide. While no public reconciliation seems imminent, discreet conversations may be ongoing, facilitated by mutual acquaintances or family members seeking peace. Publicly, Harry and Meghan appear poised to continue charting their own course. Their recent appearances and interviews reflect a commitment to advocacy and storytelling beyond the monarchy. Some analysts interpret this as a strategic pivot, embracing the role of influencers and changemakers in a modern world rather than traditional royals bound by protocol. Financially, the couple has secured lucrative contracts with Netflix, Spotify, and other platforms, signaling their intent to sustain independence. However, the potential loss of royal benefits may necessitate recalibrations in their approach to public life and security. The Sussexes also face personal challenges. Raising their children far from the UK royal fold presents questions about identity, heritage, and future roles. How they choose to balance these elements will shape their legacy and relationship with the institution they once belonged to. Moreover, the broader public watches closely, divided between empathy and skepticism. Some view Harry and Meghan as courageous figures confronting an archaic system, others see them as self-serving or disloyal. Navigating this polarized landscape will require careful management. In the coming months, all eyes will be on how Harry and Meghan respond, whether with quiet resilience, bold countermoves, or attempts at reconciliation. The royal saga continues, but the direction is uncertain. What is clear is that this is not just a story of a prince and princess. It is a complex narrative about family, identity, and the evolving meaning of royalty in the 21st century. The royal family is more than a collection of individuals. It is an institution symbolizing centuries of tradition, national identity, and continuity. When King Charles moves to sever Prince Harry's royal status, the ramifications extend far beyond personal family dynamics. This decision strikes at the very heart of the monarchy's future in an ever-changing world. The British monarchy has long been a delicate balancing act, honoring history while adapting to modern expectations. In recent decades, scandals, shifts in public sentiment, and the rise of media scrutiny have forced the crown to reconsider how it presents itself. King Charles, now the head of the institution, faces the monumental challenge of sustaining relevance while safeguarding the monarchy's dignity. Cutting off Harry sends a clear signal. The monarchy prioritizes stability and unity over personal feelings. For Charles, this is essential to maintaining respect for the crown, especially in a time when the royal family grapples with declining approval ratings and growing calls for reform. This move is also aligned with Charles's vision of a streamlined monarchy. Since ascending the throne, he has advocated for a slimmed-down royal family, fewer working royals, reduced public spending, and a clearer focus on core duties. Removing Harry's status fits into this strategy, potentially setting a precedent for a more centralized and controlled institution. However, the risk is significant. The public's affection for Harry, combined with sympathy for his and Meghan's struggles, could turn this decision into a public relations disaster. Many see Harry as a relatable figure, someone who rebelled against the system to protect his mental health and family. Punishing him harshly may alienate younger generations, who already question the monarchy's relevance. Furthermore, Harry's removal could deepen divisions within the royal family itself. A visible fracture damages the image of unity that monarchies rely on to command loyalty. The palace's careful choreography of appearances and ceremonies relies on a sense of cohesion that may now be undermined. Internationally, the monarchy's soft power could suffer. The British crown has historically been a symbol of cultural diplomacy and national pride. A publicized family feud risks eroding this image, especially in Commonwealth countries where royal approval remains influential. On a constitutional level, this episode raises questions about the limits of royal authority and parliamentary involvement. Stripping titles is rare and involves complex legal processes, potentially inviting political debate and public scrutiny. How the government and parliament respond will be closely watched. The financial implications cannot be ignored. The monarchy receives substantial funding from taxpayers, justified by its role in national identity and tourism. If public support wanes, funding could be reconsidered, jeopardizing the institution's sustainability. In this context, King Charles's move is both a bold assertion of authority and a gamble. He risks alienating a portion of the public and fracturing his family, but he aims to preserve the monarchy's core and ensure its survival. The tension between tradition and change is palpable. Charles must navigate this landscape carefully, balancing respect for the past with the demands of the present. For many observers, the question is not just about Harry, but about what kind of monarchy Britain wants moving forward. Will it be an institution that embraces modern values and inclusivity, or one that clings tightly to protocol and hierarchy? The answer will shape not only the royal family's internal dynamics, but the nation's identity itself. Beneath the polished public facade of Buckingham Palace lies a world of intricate maneuvering, whispered conversations, and strategic calculations. The decision by King Charles to strip Prince Harry of his royal status is not simply a reaction to personal grievances. It is the culmination of layers of hidden motives and carefully crafted strategies designed to protect an institution facing unprecedented challenges. One cannot discuss these moves without acknowledging the influence of senior palace officials and courtiers. Over the years, the royal household has become a complex ecosystem where power is wielded not just by the monarch but by a cadre of trusted advisors. These individuals, often unseen by the public, play pivotal roles in shaping decisions, managing crises, and steering the family's public image. Sources suggest that the plan to sever Harry's status was shaped by discussions among this inner circle, who perceive the Sussexes' ongoing public criticisms as a threat to the monarchy's survival. Some courtiers believe that the family's refusal to fully reconcile and the continuing revelations about palace life have eroded public confidence, necessitating a firm response. Beyond the immediate family, political pressures also factor into the equation. While the monarchy is constitutionally separate from government, it exists within a political context. With rising Republican sentiment in parts of the UK and Commonwealth, the Crown faces scrutiny about its relevance and expenses. By taking decisive action against dissent within its ranks, Charles may be signaling strength to both supporters and skeptics. Camilla, Queen Consort, is believed to have had significant input. Having endured her own battles with public opinion and royal acceptance, she understands the stakes intimately. Her council reportedly urged Charles to act decisively, viewing any leniency as a potential weakness exploitable by critics. Prince William's role in this dynamic cannot be understated. The rift between the brothers, exacerbated by Harry's memoir Spare and the Sussexes' media ventures, has hardened William's resolve. Friends close to William claim he sees this as a moment to reassert his position as the future monarch, reinforcing the traditional hierarchy and distancing the institution from controversy. Financial concerns also underpin the strategy. The royal family's funding relies heavily on public support, philanthropy, and commercial ventures. Negative publicity from ongoing Sussex-related scandals risks jeopardizing these revenue streams. A firm break with Harry may be designed to reassure stakeholders that the monarchy is stable and self-policing. Behind the scenes, the palace communications team is orchestrating a careful media campaign. Leaks to sympathetic journalists, controlled statements, and timing of announcements are all calibrated to shape public perception. The goal is to present the king as a leader compelled by duty rather than personal vendetta. However, not all within the palace agree with this approach. Some advisors caution that an overly harsh stance risks alienating the public and deepening divisions within the family. They advocate for discreet diplomacy and private reconciliation efforts to avoid further damage. Additionally, there are reports of contingency plans being developed. If Harry reacts with further public criticism or legal challenges, the palace is prepared to respond firmly, reinforcing boundaries and managing fallout. The strategies extend beyond this immediate crisis, anticipating potential scenarios over the coming years. Underlying all these maneuvers is a recognition of the monarchy's fragile position. The institution must evolve to survive but risks losing identity if it abandons too much tradition. Balancing continuity with change requires calculated risks and, sometimes, difficult sacrifices. Charles's decision to cut Harry off is emblematic of this tension. It is both a protective shield and a scalpel intended to excise a perceived threat but risking collateral damage. As these hidden strategies unfold, the public sees only the surface drama. Yet beneath lies a world where power, loyalty, and survival intersect in ways that will shape the monarchy's destiny. The saga of Prince Harry and King Charles's fractured relationship is not without precedent in the annals of royal history. Monarchies, by their very nature, are steeped in tradition but also marked by conflict, rebellion, and dramatic personal ruptures. To fully understand the current crisis, it is essential to explore historical parallels that shed light on the potential outcomes and lessons from the past. Perhaps the most striking comparison is the abdication of King Edward VIII in 1936. Edward's decision to relinquish the throne to Mary Wallace Simpson, a twice-divorced American socialite, sent shockwaves through the monarchy and British society. His abdication led to his being stripped of royal duties and a semi-exile from public life. The consequences were profound. The monarchy faced a constitutional crisis, and Edward lived much of his life away from Britain. Edward's story echoes Harry's in several ways. Both men chose love and personal convictions over traditional royal expectations. Both faced public backlash and familial estrangement. Yet, Edward's abdication paved the way for a more stable monarchy under his brother, George VI, illustrating how sacrifice could preserve the institution. Another parallel can be found in the life of Princess Margaret, Queen Elizabeth II's sister. Margaret's romance with Group Captain Peter Townsend, a divorced man, was met with opposition from the royal family and the Church of England. Ultimately, she relinquished the relationship to maintain royal protocols, embodying the tension between personal desire and royal duty. More recently, the withdrawal of Prince Andrew from public duties amid allegations and scandal demonstrates the monarchy's approach to crisis management. Though Andrew retained his titles, his public role was severely curtailed, reflecting a strategy of containment and damage control. These examples underscore recurring themes: the monarchy's imperative to protect its reputation, the personal costs of royal duty, and the delicate balance between tradition and individual autonomy. Harry's situation is unique in its global media exposure and the couple's proactive engagement with the public through interviews, memoirs, and media deals. This transparency contrasts with past generations' secrecy, altering the dynamics of public perception and royal response. Historically, royal scandals often led to exile, silence, or reconciliation behind closed doors. Harry and Meghan's openness disrupts this pattern, forcing the monarchy into a more reactive posture. Lessons from history suggest that while harsh measures can stabilize the institution in the short term, they may sow seeds of long-term resentment and public sympathy for the excluded parties. The monarchy's ability to adapt, whether through forgiveness, reform, or reinvention, determines its endurance. As King Charles confronts this crisis, he faces the challenge of applying historical wisdom to a modern context, where social media, global audiences, and shifting cultural values amplify every move. Understanding these historical parallels provides insight into the monarchy's strategies and the potential paths forward. It also invites reflection on whether the royal family can learn from the past to build a future that honors both tradition and personal humanity. As the dust settles on King Charles's momentous decision to strip Prince Harry of his royal status, the question looming over the House of Windsor is, what happens next? This chapter explores the possible scenarios, implications, and future dynamics that will define the monarchy and Harry's place within it. One likely outcome is a period of heightened tension and public scrutiny. The palace will be on high alert, managing media narratives and preparing for the reactions from both supporters and critics of the Sussexes. Public opinion will continue to be a battleground, with social media amplifying every statement and leak. Harry and Meghan, for their part, may respond with increased public appearances, interviews, or creative projects that assert their independence and tell their side of the story. Their ability to shape the narrative could influence how the monarchy is perceived globally. Alternatively, there remains a possibility, however slim, of private reconciliation. Behind the scenes, intermediaries may facilitate dialogue aimed at mending familial bonds without public fanfare. Such efforts would require significant concessions and emotional vulnerability from all parties. The royal family itself may undergo further restructuring. Charles's vision of a slimmed-down monarchy could accelerate, with fewer working royals and a clearer delineation of roles. This would align with broader societal expectations for accountability and cost efficiency. Legally, the process of revoking Harry's titles will involve parliamentary scrutiny, and debates may emerge regarding the constitutional implications. This could open discussions about reforming the monarchy's role in contemporary governance. Financial considerations will also play a role. The monarchy's funding, partly derived from public money, depends on maintaining public support. Negative press and internal discord risk jeopardizing this, potentially leading to calls for increased transparency or budget cuts. Internationally, the monarchy's relationships with Commonwealth countries may be affected. Nations contemplating republicanism might view these internal conflicts as signs of instability, fueling debates about their own ties to the crown. For Harry and Meghan's children, the unfolding events raise questions about identity and future roles within or outside royal tradition. Their upbringing and public profiles will be shaped by the choices their parents make and the responses of the royal institution. Looking further ahead, the monarchy faces the challenge of modernizing without losing its essence. How it navigates this crisis will set precedents for handling dissent, personal autonomy, and public accountability. King Charles's reign is still in its early years, and this episode may define his legacy. Whether seen as a decisive leader who preserved the crown or as a monarch who fractured his family will depend on the outcomes in the coming months and years. The world watches closely, understanding that this is more than a family drama. It is a defining moment for one of the oldest and most visible institutions on Earth. The saga of Prince Harry and King Charles's fractured relationship, culminating in the stripping of Harry's royal status, marks a pivotal moment not only for the individuals involved, but for the monarchy as a whole. It encapsulates the tension between tradition and modernity, family loyalty and institutional duty, personal pain and public responsibility. As King Charles takes this unprecedented step, he faces the immense challenge of balancing his roles as both sovereign and father. The weight of centuries of history rests on his shoulders, demanding decisions that will shape the monarchy's trajectory for years to come. His choice to sever Harry's ties reflects a determination to protect the crown's dignity, yet it also reveals the profound personal costs embedded in royal life. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, this chapter signifies both loss and opportunity. Removed from the official royal fold, they are charting a path defined by independence, advocacy, and a reimagining of what royalty can mean in today's world. Their journey resonates with many who grapple with identity, belonging, and the courage to defy expectations. The public, meanwhile, remains a crucial actor in this unfolding drama. Their perceptions, sympathies, and judgments influence the monarchy's survival. As society evolves, so too must the institution that represents it, finding ways to honor heritage while embracing change. Ultimately, this story serves as a reminder that behind the gilded walls and ceremonial pomp are real people navigating complex emotions, relationships, and responsibilities. The monarchy is not immune to conflict or heartbreak, and its future depends on its ability to reconcile these human realities with its enduring symbolism. As viewers and observers, we are left to ponder, will this rift heal, or is it a sign of deeper fractures? Will King Charles be remembered as a monarch who preserved an ancient institution, or one whose reign was marked by division? And where does that leave Prince Harry, the prince who chose a different path? These questions linger, inviting reflection on family, duty, and the evolving nature of royalty. Thank you for joining this deep exploration of one of the most compelling royal stories of our time. If you found this video insightful, please like, share, and subscribe to stay updated on all things royal and beyond. We welcome your thoughts. Leave a comment below and join the conversation. Until next time, stay curious and stay tuned.